Good day to you. I'm walking across East Stroudsburg University's campus. I'm walking towards the building I'm working in. Many of you who go to school cross these very same paths, and you bump into people on a regular basis, some of which you know because you have classes with them, you've had classes with them over the years. Other people you see regularly, you know that they're in the building, you recognize their face, but you maybe give them a hello, but not much more than that. These people, in the old days, would have constituted what we consider to be public space. These are people that you would be forced to interact with. These would be people that you would thereby develop bonds with, not necessarily according to your choice, but by virtue of the time and space in which you encounter these people. These people, in other words, would form your public network. And that's my introduction for today, because we're going to talk about public networks. And we're going to talk about public networks in the context of the main themes of the chapter. And those two main themes are friendship and intimacy. Two terms which we've already sort of identified in this class through our other chapter readings. So as I'm walking through, who am I bumping into? So far, nobody. No surprise, right? It's Christmas time around here, and the university campus is pretty empty at Christmas. So far, I have not bumped into a single person. And so I'm having to rely on myself right now for my feeling of well-being. I'm not necessarily able to say to somebody else, hey, did you see what I saw last night on television? Do we think the same thing? As a way of reaffirming ourselves. No, I have to rely on myself as I walk down these lonely hallways. But I know one person is in, and that's Marina. Hi, Marina.
Hi.
That's Marina. She's the department secretary. She also works for sport management. And I see her every time I come to work. So she's a person I have an intimacy with and also a friendship with by virtue of our working together. But how have things changed because of social media? That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how social media networks have changed those conceptions of intimacy and friendship. And in fact, social media today have created new frontiers for developing personal relationships with people. The frontiers that cross across space and time that we've already sort of identified in this class. And along with those new encounters that we have, because we're texting, we're posting, we're sharing, we're liking, we're attaching emojis. Because of those new frontiers, we also have a new set of norms and a new set of rules that govern our behaviors. So let's talk about intimacy now. Let's talk about how intimacy has changed. You know, in the olden days, the days that I tried to create by my introduction video today, your intimacy would come from your family and your community that you lived with. Intimacy is sharing of private information. It's knowing of private information about others. I can tell you that it's something that it would be a duty rather than a choice. And I'll elaborate on why that's important in a little bit. But intimacy that's derived from duty is very, very different from the kind of intimacy that we find on social media networks. Because when you have a duty, you're forced into it. Not that you necessarily oppose it, but it's a different kind of intimacy. I can tell you that when my dad, my family member, died 10 years ago from cancer, his final days were very undignified. And I was there for him. I saw him in his pajamas, a frail man not able to eat. I saw him barely able to walk up the stairs. I saw him undergoing a lot of other things that patients go through when they go through cancer. And that's something that would I have not liked to have seen? Yeah, I would have not liked to have seen my dad go through that. But I did see it because it was my duty as his son to be there and to help him carry things and to help him up the stairs. That's intimacy before social media networks. So intimacy is related to the kinds of things that we know about each other that are private. And intimacy and the study of it used to be confined mostly to heterosexual relationships when it comes to partners in our lives. That is, the study of intimacy used to revolve around man and wife, or husband and wife, or husband and woman, depending on how you want to look at it. And intimacy in that context would be based on mutual disclosure of significant information. So you tell a person when you're getting together with them who you've slept with in the past, and you expect them to do the same. And once you share that information with each other, there's an implicit assumption that you're not going to make each other feel bad about it, or that you're not going to be jealous. At least that's the intention. It doesn't always turn out that way, of course, but the idea here is that the intimacy is being achieved through a mutual decision to share information. Later on, the conception of intimacy changed through feminism, as the book discussed, and also divorce. And it caused us to reconsider where we get those intimate relationships from when we are no longer married to somebody that we've been married to, or when we are no longer in a heterosexual relationship and we might be in a, or well, not we, but somebody might be in a homosexual relationship. And then intimacy began to be bound by conditional love. That is, it's very opposite of unconditional love, right? Unconditional love is you love a person no matter what. Conditional love is, no, I'm going to love you if you're going to be a good person. I'm going to love you if you're going to love me back. I'm going to love you if I'm still attracted to you. When any of those things change, I'm not going to love you anymore. That's how intimacy evolved into after feminism and after divorce. Now, intimacy has evolved very differently because of social media connections. For a start, intimacy is much more fluid. You can be very intimate with somebody one moment, and the next moment, guess what? They've done something to irritate you, and you defriend them, and now you no longer see them on Facebook, or you unfollow them on Twitter, or you're no longer looking at their story on Snapchat, or you're no longer interested in liking their photographs on Instagram, and you cut them off. Intimacy is very fluid, and then maybe you move to somebody else who you are intimate with and you start to share your secrets with. To return to a concept that we talked about yesterday, the affordances, or what I also called affordability of media and social media, that is, what they are able to do because of their technological capacities, social media allow for a narrative of the self. That narrative, or storytelling about yourself, creating your story, even on Snapchat, it's actually called a story. Just think about that for a moment, used to describe the content of Snapchat. It's your story. You're telling people about yourself, and you're choosing to tell people about yourself. I have a friend on Facebook who he's posting a new profile picture, I'm going to say once a week. And this last week, he posted a profile picture often taken in his workplace setting. He's a videographer for county government in Seattle, Washington. And his profile pictures are often in the same pose. He's sitting in a chair. The camera is up here looking down on him, and he's smiling. And he's often commenting on his beard. Winter beard in full effect, he says. Well, last week I noticed that he took a new profile picture. It told me that on my Facebook newsfeed. And then an hour later, I noticed he had posted another profile picture, which was actually the same picture, but what he had done is zoomed in on it so he filled more of the frame and you could see more of his face. That kind of construction of a narrative of the self is revealing intimacy that we have not seen before. To be able to look at a person that kind of I mean, you can look at me now really close up because of this social medium in a way that you wouldn't be able to if we were meeting in person at the CAF, for example. Also part of intimacy today, and how it is influenced by social media networks, is the idea of self-disclosure. Self-disclosure is when you choose to tell something about yourself that you wouldn't tell to average everyday people. You know, for example, my sister visited with my son and my daughter. They went up to see her in New York, and she shared with them that when I was 6 years old, I almost lit the house on fire. I found some matches. I was 6 years old. I lit them. I lit some Kleenex on a chair. The chair went up in flames. Dad came upstairs, and boy, was I in a lot of trouble. Well, that's something that I didn't get to choose to disclose. But once it was out of the bag, then I started to describe what my thinking was to my kids so that they understood that I'm not an arsonist, that I did this because I was curious about what these matches were, and I didn't know how they worked, and I didn't realize that flames can get out of control, etc., etc. I am choosing to self-disclose that not only to them now, but to you as well on social media. And I'm not just disclosing it to one person here, I'm disclosing it to all 16 people in the class. So what I'm trying to get at here is that self-disclosure is accelerated and it's expanded by social media when you expose dimensions of your personality. that you wouldn't expose to everybody. And part of the reason that we self-disclose, especially when we're in one-on-one relationships, is we want to test a person's trust. If we tell a person that we're really, really afraid of heights, and then they go and when we're traveling on a bridge together on a road trip that we eventually take, they say, oh, look at the water down below. That's really far. They're making fun of you. They're testing that trust. That's one of the reasons that we self-disclose. And if a person passes that test of trust, it brings us closer into intimacy. On social media, it's very much a part of our conception of intimacy that love and affection is expressed. In fact, the chapter calls it paramount. And so what we do is we use social media networks to provide support and love in the absence of those things existing in our real lives. When I walked up to the building today, I said, I'm not seeing anybody. I've got to feel good about my well-being by myself today. I'm not able to rely on others saying, I like your photo, or I agree with your comment, or I'm going to share what you're saying, or I'm going to retweet it. We can rely on those things today as expressions of love and affection to help build our welfare. In the past, before social media, we had to rely on ourselves. Also, social media, as I've implied when it comes to intimacy, they introduce anonymous audiences to intimate situations. That means the audience doesn't know each other. I've sent you a photograph today that's attached to this video. I think I can attach it. I'll find out shortly, but I'll get it to you one way or another. This is a photograph of a former student of mine, Jennifer, and she's on a Caribbean beach at a resort, and she's with her husband in a very intimate pose. They aren't wearing a lot of clothing. She's in a bikini. He has no shirt on. They're touching each other. They're drinking beer. This is a kind of intimacy that's being exposed to an anonymous audience. I mean, I don't know the other people who are seeing. I don't know anybody in her family. She was a very good student while I was here. I was very happy with her work. And then afterwards, she became a television news broadcaster, and we stayed in touch, and I got a friend request, and I accepted the friend request, and now I'm following her through her marriage and her trip to the Caribbean, and I'm seeing her in intimate settings. It's something that social media has opened up. The term intimacy has been opened up to anonymous audiences. And in terms of parent and child relationships on social media, there are boundaries that are being crossed. I talked about how there are new norms and new rules that are resulting as a result of the way that intimacy is treated on social media. I had a student in my class, she's a returning student last semester, and she said her son went away to college, and the only way she can find out how he's doing, because he won't call her, is to follow him on Twitter. So parents are doing those things. They're seeing where you're checking into. They're texting you. They're making sure that they know where you are, and they're able to do that in ways today that were never possible before. And sometimes voluntarily on your part is when you check in somewhere and it puts it on social media. In the past, you could gain that privacy. You could say, I'm getting away from my parents. I'm just going to leave home for a couple days, and they got to kind of like trust that I'm going to be all right. But I'm not going to tell them I'm over my boyfriends. I'm not going to tell them that I'm smoking pot in the forest. I'm not going to tell them that I'm out late at night and I'm cavorting with people who are unseemly character. I'm not going to tell them that. But today, parents are able to monitor your behavior, as are other people in your life, through social media, and it opens up that intimacy in ways that wasn't possible before. Now on to the concept of friendship. Friendship is also something that we've already discussed in here. There has been, according to the book, a rising importance of friendship in our social being. It used to be that we relied on intimacy with our family to feel good about things. If you really, really were having a tough time in life, you could go home and talk to your mother, your brother, your father, your sister, your uncle, the wise aunt, and that's how you would achieve your well-being. Today, friendship, and this really broad conception of it as somebody who asks you if you want to be their friend, you have just something slightly in common. Maybe it's just the fact that you know each other. And now they're your friends, and now we rely on those friends liking things, sharing things, and reading what we're putting, and just basically being there for our messages on social media. We're relying on friendship for social well-being today. And the way that we rely on that is through what the book calls our social networks, also called individual networks. Individual networks or social networks are networks that you have created through your social media. So we have open networks like Twitter, which anybody can follow anybody on Twitter unless they're blocked. But generally speaking, you can see what somebody is doing without having to accept a friend request. That's different from Facebook. Facebook is a closed individual network, and you assemble that network very consciously. You do it by choice. In fact, I've seen people just very flagrantly say, okay, I went through my Facebook and I'm cleaning out my friends today. Oh my God, they're speaking about it in such a routine and detached fashion that they're deleting this person, deleting that person, like doing spring cleaning and getting rid of stuff that they're not going to wear anymore. Our networks are carefully selected. And within those networks, friendship is a key part of our social integration. If you are not going to do certain things that people are expecting of you, let's say you belong to a group on Facebook, and let's say that group is a NASCAR fan group. You really like NASCAR, the sport. And that group talks about a lot of things, and one of the things they talk about is music. Another thing they talk about is politics. Well, NASCAR fans are going to tend, generally speaking, stereotypically thinking, to like country music. They're going to tend towards Republican politics, conservative politics. If you want to be integrated into that group, then you have to comment with like-minded thoughts. Doesn't mean you have to agree with everything, of course, but you have to generally be accepted by the group. So friendship within social networks helps us with our integration into these networks that we have created. And one of the central themes, getting back to the way that our friendships and intimacy was created before social media, one of the central themes of friendship is that today, trust and commitment are replacing duty and obligation in friendship. Trust and commitment. Self-disclosure to see if you can trust somebody, that they don't gossip about you or reveal what only you want them to hear. And commitment, that they're willing to do that even when it would be to their advantage to gossip about you to somebody else because it makes them look like they're in the know. No, if they don't do that, they're showing commitment. That strengthens the friendship. In the old days, before social media, friendship was achieved by duty and obligation. You're really sick, a person has to work who's your friend, they decide that they're going to take a couple hours off of work to go to the store to get you the medicine that you need, to get you chicken noodle soup, to come by, spend time with you, to call you, check in on you. That is a duty that was seen as fostering friendship in the past, and the obligation to do that because you are a friend. In fact, today we can say that friends have taken over many functions of the family. In feeling good about yourself, in gaining advice on what to do, relationship advice, for example, on trying to figure out what your career path is. A lot of things that we would turn to family for in the past, including support, love, and affection, we turn to these friendships, these so-called broadened definition of friendships that we have on our individual networks. And then that takes us now to the idea of a public, because we have the idea of a personal culture and a public culture. And I want to distinguish between the two and say why they're important on social media. So your personal culture is what you have cultivated personally in the past. And it shows itself in things like a diary or a family photo album or home movies. This personal culture would remain very private. You would keep that photo album, you would keep that diary in your desk, and you would hope that nobody in your family would come and violate you by reading that diary. Today, we put all of that stuff online, and it becomes a public culture. We put every single waking moment, some of us, for what we're doing online. I have a Facebook friend. She was a friend of mine in college. We dated briefly. She asked me for a friend request. I accepted a little while ago. Now I see everything she's doing every single day on Facebook. I see when she goes to the hair salon. I see when she has a party. I see what restaurant she's constantly eating at. I see when she goes to the gym. I see when she goes shopping. I see when she goes to concerts. I know that today she's flying to Reading, Pennsylvania for a party that she's arranged called December, D-E-C-E-M-B-A, to remember, R-E-M-B-E-M-R-E-M-E-M-B-A. I know so much about her because of this ability to post our previously personal culture on social media, now making it a public culture. So when we look back at these two terms, intimacy and friendship, we can say that today that there are new publics that are created by our social media networks, and that these publics are defined by a bounded system. That means a system that we have created through our accepting of friendship requests and asking other people to be friends, and our followers and the people that we allow into our Snapchat stories, and the people that we allow to follow us on Instagram. I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology there. I'm obviously not that well versed in Instagram and Snapchat. We can see the list of people who belong to that, and we can cross over and examine those lists and make friends with people on those lists, and we can see who those people are friends with. It's all very public today, the concepts of intimacy and friendship. And those two terms today are much more by choice than they are by duty. Have a great day.